When she was writing her book, she said, there are things you kids don't even know. That's why I want to write the book. She was frightened. She was grief-stricken. I would come home from school wondering if my mom was going to be alive.
Vivian Liberto is no longer alive, but the truth she left behind is finally being heard. In her book and old recordings, she talks about the real Johnny Cash, the one who struggled with addiction and slowly drifted away from her. While the world celebrated Johnny's love with June Carter, Vivian saw manipulation beneath the smile. And no, long after her death, she's telling the story she was never allowed to share. The roots of a legend. Johnny Cash was born in a small town called Dyess, Arkansas. He was the fourth of 7 children born to Ray and Carrie Cash, who were hard-working cotton farmers with strong religious values. Life wasn't easy in the Delta, where the days were long and hot, and the work was tough. Johnny, along with his brothers and sisters, helped out in the cotton fields. But even in those hard times, music was always there. Someone was always singing while they worked. It helped the day pass a little faster, and young Johnny learned his first songs out there in the fields. But growing up wasn't just about music and hard work. It was also painful. Johnny's father, Ray, was a heavy drinker and often violent. Johnny took the brunt of his anger more than anyone else. The one bright light in his childhood was his older brother, Jack. Johnny looked up to him and saw him as a role model. But when Johnny was 12, tragedy struck in a way that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Jack was working with a table saw, cutting logs for fence posts. That morning, Johnny begged Jack to skip work and go fishing with him instead, but Jack went anyway. Johnny remembers their final moments clearly. Jack joking around, doing a Bugs Bunny impression, saying, "What's up, Doc?" as they parted ways. Hours later, Johnny returned from a quiet day by the river to find his father waiting in a preacher's car. Jack had been terribly hurt by the saw. He survived for a week before passing away, but the damage was too severe. He was almost cut in half. The loss hit Johnny hard, but what hurt even more was the way his father responded. Ray blamed Johnny for Jack's death and told him straight out, "It should have been you." That moment broke something inside Johnny and stayed with him for life. To cope, Johnny turned to the radio. Country music and gospel songs gave him comfort, and soon he began writing his own lyrics. He called them song poems. By the time he turned 18, he saw a way out of the cotton fields. He once said, "The only picking I'll do from now on is guitar picking." And that promise marked the start of a journey. Young love and long distance. In July 1950, not long after the Korean War began, Johnny Cash enlisted in the U.S. Air Force. After finishing basic training at Lackland Air Force Base and technical school at Brooks Air Force Base, he was sent overseas. He was assigned to the Radio Squadron Mobile of the Air Force Security Service in Landsberg, West Germany, where he worked as a Morse code operator. His job was to listen in on Soviet Army transmissions, and it's said he was the first American to hear the news of Joseph Stalin's death. Before he left for Germany, Johnny met a young woman named Vivian Liberto at a roller skating rink in San Antonio on 18th July, 1951. She was of Sicilian, Irish, and German background. He wasn't exactly a skilled skater, but he charmed her anyway, singing along to a Rosemary Clooney song that played over the speakers. That night, they shared a brief skate and started what would become a deep and complicated love story. Johnny and Vivian's relationship grew quickly. Before leaving for his assignment in Germany, he even carved "Johnny Loves Vivian" into a bench on the San Antonio River Walk. They promised to stay in touch, and they did. Over the next 3 years, while Johnny was stationed in West Germany, the two exchanged thousands of letters. Sometimes he would write to her every single day. His letters were full of emotion, humor, and tenderness. He called her pet names like "My Darling Vivian," "My Baby," and once even "My Snooky Pootsy," joking, "Isn't that a killer, sweetheart? I'm not drunk, honey. I just dreamed up that name." But some of the letters also revealed his personal struggles. He wrote about being lonely and insecure, and a few times he confessed to drinking and seeing other women, always with a promise not to do it again. Despite these red flags, Vivian was deeply in love. She later admitted that she dated other men back home while Johnny was away, but her heart belonged to him. In her words, she was crazy in love during that time. Start of something big. In the summer of 1954, Johnny Cash came home from serving in the Air Force. It was the 4th of July when he arrived at the airport in West Memphis, Arkansas. His girlfriend, Vivian Liberto, was waiting for him with his family. She later recalled how they didn't even speak at first. She just ran into his arms and they kissed. A few weeks later, on the 7th of August, they got married at St. Anne's Catholic Church in San Antonio, Texas. After the wedding, Johnny and Vivian moved to Memphis, Tennessee to start their life together. Johnny got a job selling appliances door to door while also taking classes to become a radio announcer. But selling appliances wasn't exactly his dream. He didn't enjoy it and quickly became frustrated with the job. Thankfully, his brother Roy introduced him to 2 local musicians, Marshall Grant and Luther Perkins. The 3 of them hit it off right away, bonding over their love for hillbilly music. They started playing together at night. Grant and Perkins became known as the Tennessee Two, and together with Johnny, they began to build something special. Then came the moment that changed everything. Johnny decided to take a chance and walked into Sun Records, hoping to land a recording deal. He auditioned for Sam Phillips by singing gospel songs, but Phillips wasn't interested in gospel anymore. There's a well-known rumor that Phillips told Johnny to go home and sin, then come back with a song I can sell. But Johnny denied that ever happened. Still, Johnny didn't give up. He came back with some new songs in a raw rockabilly style. One of those songs was Cry, 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 which he reportedly wrote in just 15 minutes. Vivian, who was pregnant with their first child, Roseanne, remembered Johnny coming home that day saying, "Baby, we're cutting a record." In 1955, Cry, 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 and another track, Hey Porter, were released by Sun Records. The songs quickly gained attention, and just like that, Johnny Cash and the Tennessee Two became the label's newest stars. Legends collide. On 4th December 1956, something unforgettable happened at Sun Records. Elvis Presley casually dropped by to visit Sam Phillips while Carl Perkins was recording some new songs. Jerry Lee Lewis was on the piano, backing Carl up. Johnny Cash also happened to be at the studio that day. Before long, the 4 of them, Elvis, Carl, Jerry Lee, and Johnny, started jamming together in an unplanned session. Sam Phillips kept the tape rolling the whole time. Most of the songs they sang were gospel tunes. That surprise jam session would later be called the $1 Million Quartet, and the recordings were eventually released for the world to hear. In his autobiography, Johnny mentioned that he had been standing far from the mic and even sang in a higher pitch to blend better with Elvis. By then, Johnny Cash had become part of music history, touring alongside fellow Sun Records stars like Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Roy Orbison. According to Vivian, Johnny's first wife, they were especially fond of Elvis. She described him as a warm, kind guy who became a close friend. But touring came with its own set of challenges. With fame came attention from fans, especially women. Vivian asked Johnny if he ever felt tempted. He assured her, "I walk the line for you." That simple promise became the spark for a hit. Johnny asked Vivian to write down the lyrics as he came up with them while driving. The result was I Walk the Line, released in the spring of 1956. It hit #1 right around the time their second daughter, Kathy, was born. Johnny's fame grew fast, and with it came changes. His new manager, Stu Carnall, pushed him to move to California. Vivian didn't protest. At that point, she admitted, "I just agreed with whatever Johnny wanted. I didn't really have a mind of my own." By the summer of 1958, only a month after their third daughter, Cindy, was born, they packed up and moved to Encino, California. Their new home had once belonged to Johnny Carson. But while it looked like a dream, Vivian would later describe this move as the beginning of what she called a dangerous current in their lives, a shift that would soon test everything they had built together. Outlaw image. By the late 1950s, Johnny Cash's music career was taking off fast. His songs were climbing the charts, fans loved him, and he was performing all over the country. But behind the scenes, things weren't going so well. Johnny had started drinking heavily, and more dangerously, he became addicted to amphetamines and barbiturates. At first, it seemed like he was just trying to keep up with his busy schedule. He used the drugs to stay awake during long tours and late-night shows. For a short time, Johnny even shared an apartment in Nashville with fellow musician Waylon Jennings, who was also hooked on amphetamines. Their place became a chaotic zone, full of wild energy and little sleep. Friends and fellow artists would often joke about Johnny's jittery behavior and sudden mood swings. They called it nervousness, not realizing or choosing to ignore that it was a sign of something more serious. Despite his personal struggles, Johnny kept writing and recording music. His creativity didn't stop. One of his biggest hits during this time was Ring of Fire. The song shot to #1 on the country charts and even made it into the top 20 on the pop charts. It was originally performed by Anita Carter, June Carter's sister, but Johnny added a unique touch. He introduced a mariachi-style horn section that made the track unforgettable. He later said that the idea for the arrangement came to him in a dream. But the story of the Ring of Fire isn't so simple. Johnny's first wife, Vivian Liberto, had her own version. In her memoir, I Walked the Line, My Life with Johnny, she claimed that Johnny gave June Carter half the songwriting credit, not because she helped write it, but for financial reasons. Trouble in the Wild Years. In June 1965, Johnny Cash went on a fishing trip with his nephew Damon Fielder in California's Los Padres National Forest. What was supposed to be a relaxing getaway turned into a disaster. Cash's camper caught fire, starting a forest blaze that burned over 500 acres, scorched 3 mountains, and even drove away 49 of the 53 endangered California condors living in the area. Cash blamed a faulty exhaust system for the fire, but Damon believed Johnny started a small fire to stay warm and, under the influence of drugs, didn't realize it was spreading. When a judge later asked Johnny why he had done it, he shrugged it off and said, "I didn't do it, my truck did, and it's dead, so you can't question it." He also infamously said, "I don't care about your damn yellow buzzards." The federal government sued him for the damage. Cash ended up settling the case for $82,000. Though Cash liked the outlaw image, he never actually served time in prison. He was arrested 7 times, but each time he only spent 1 night in jail. One arrest happened on May 19, '65, when he wandered onto private property in Starkville, Mississippi, to pick flowers in the middle of the night. He later turned that odd moment into a song called Starkville City Jail. In October of the same year, he was arrested in El Paso, Texas. The police thought he was smuggling heroin from Mexico, but instead, they found hundreds of prescription pills and tranquilizers hidden in his guitar case. Since they were legal with a prescription, he got a suspended sentence and was released after posting a $1,500 bond. Around this time, Cash was still releasing music. One bold project was Bitter Tears, an album focused on Native American struggles. Though powerful, it didn't sit well with many radio stations or fans who weren't used to hearing such strong social messages in country music. His final arrest came in 1965 in Georgia after a car crash. Police found pills in his possession, and when Cash tried to bribe the deputy, the offer was rejected. He spent the night in jail. The local sheriff, Ralph Jones, gave him a serious talk about wasting his life. Cash later said that moment helped him turn things around. To show his gratitude, he returned to Lafayette to perform a benefit concert, raising $75,000 for the town's high school, a big deal considering the town's population was under 9,000. Looking back years later, Johnny summed up that time with painful honesty. "I was taking the pills for a while, and then the pills started taking me." Behind closed doors. Cindy Cash, one of Johnny Cash's daughters, remembers her parents only fighting once. But even as a young child, she could sense something wasn't right. "Mom always seemed worried," Cindy said. "She would stay up late, but she never let us see her pain." Looking back now, Cindy understands the root of it. The pills led Dad into a really destructive part of his life, she said softly, and Mom paid the price. In 1961, just 2 weeks after the birth of their youngest daughter, Tara, Vivian hoped a fresh start would help. They moved to Casitas Springs, a quiet town in California. Vivian believed the peace and distance from Nashville's chaos might calm Johnny down. But it didn't. Johnny was becoming more of the bad boy many fans would come to admire. In Ventura County, where Casitas Springs is located, people began to see both sides of him. Charming and creative, but also reckless and unpredictable. He often visited nearby Lake Casitas, where he'd go fishing or, more often, drink too much and lose control. He used to come out here, drink too much and go over the edge, said Randy King, the marina manager. If things got too wild, someone would be called to come get him. Cindy remembers those moments well. Mom would put us all in the car, and we'd drive around trying to find Dad, she said. She doesn't remember exactly where they went, but it happened more than once. Vivian's sister, Fly, recalled one night in San Antonio where Johnny, high on pills, paced the floors all night. But she also remembered his tenderness. He was a very loving father, she said. Even with the chaos, there were warm memories. Cindy smiled as she recalled her dad blasting Christmas music through loudspeakers in their yard. It was so loud it echoed through the whole neighborhood, she said. When a sheriff's deputy came by to ask him to stop, Johnny was heartbroken. He thought he was doing something nice for the community, Cindy laughed. He always made holidays special. On Christmas mornings, he led the girls into the living room to open presents in age order. One year, he even left footprints made from fireplace ashes across the floor to prove Santa had visited. A love triangle. When Johnny Cash hit rock bottom due to drug addiction and chaotic behavior, it led to the end of his first marriage. He and Vivian had already separated in 1962, and not long after, they divorced. Years later, Vivian decided to tell her story, especially because of how the 2005 film Walk the Line portrayed things. The movie showed Johnny chasing June Carter, with June hesitating at first. But Vivian remembered it differently. In her book, she shares a moment that still stings, an argument backstage where June reportedly said, "Vivian, he will be mine." According to Vivian and her co-author, Ann Sharpstein, this moment was key to understanding where Vivian's pain came from. She wanted people to know June went after Johnny, Sharpstein explained. That was where most of her pain and anger rested all these years. Vivian's daughter, Cindy Cash, agreed. Once June came along, she just kept going, Cindy said. She wanted Dad, and she made sure she got him. She was always around, always available, until he started wanting her back. Vivian also felt hurt by how June described herself as the one raising Johnny's daughters. She didn't just find that inaccurate, she found it deeply painful. Vivian also wrote that June wasn't just present during Johnny's addiction. She claimed June supplied the drugs and used them too. The full truth may never be known. All three, Johnny, Vivian, and June, are now gone, but Johnny had agreed to support the book. He was supposed to write the foreword, and although he passed away before that could happen, his presence fills the pages. About 75% of the memoir is made up of love letters Johnny wrote to Vivian while stationed in Germany with the Air Force. Vivian and co-author Sharpstein had to go through nearly 10,000 pages of letters for the book. Vivian's sister Sylvia Fly helped proofread some of them and said there was a reason those letters were so important. Vivian wanted people to see that she and Johnny had their own great love story. She wasn't some angry ex-wife, she wasn't the villain. Though Vivian never watched the film Walk the Line, friends said she knew how she was portrayed, and it wasn't kind. The final chapters of her book surprised even those closest to her. While Vivian rarely spoke of Johnny unless someone else brought him up, those last pages revealed more than anyone expected. Her friend Suzanne Dunn said, "That part of the book opened my eyes. She was honest, but not cruel." Another friend, Helen Boyd, said, "She didn't speak harshly about June. It wasn't hate, it was just the truth." Cynthia Burrell, a close friend from Ojai, said the silence over the years had weighed on Vivian. She raised those girls. For someone else to take credit for that? That's painful, and it was worse because Johnny was such a public figure. Vivian's daughter Cindy agreed. Her mom, she said, was often left feeling invisible. More than anything, Cindy added, her mother simply wanted to finally have a voice. Farewell. Vivian Liberto never had a good feeling about June Carter. From the very first time they met in 1958, Vivian says her gut told her something was wrong. She remembered thinking, "This woman was a danger to my family." Even though she didn't know when the cheating started, the signs became harder to ignore. At first, Vivian didn't believe it. She was the woman Johnny had promised to be faithful to, the one he had walked the line for. But slowly, things started changing. Johnny was home less often. Friends and band members began dropping subtle hints. Then Vivian found receipts for expensive gifts Johnny had bought for June. That was when the truth started sinking in. Losing Johnny to someone else, especially someone she had doubted from the beginning, was deeply painful. She called it a degrading, horrible experience. What hurt the most was realizing that Johnny could love another woman. Vivian later wished she had fought harder to save the marriage. "I should have been as relentless at saving it as June was at destroying it," she wrote, though she did eventually forgive June. What she regrets most, though, is carrying so much anger for so long. Johnny never apologized directly to her, even though he said sorry to their daughters. "I'd have given anything to hear Johnny say he was sorry," she admitted. June passed away in May 2003. That summer, Vivian visited Johnny at his home in Tennessee. She told him she was writing a book about their life together. According to her, Johnny smiled and asked, "What took you so long?" Johnny Cash's final chapter. In the final years of his life, Johnny Cash faced some of his toughest battles, both personal and physical. In 1997, during a trip to New York City, he was diagnosed with Shy-Drager syndrome, a rare disease that affects the body's automatic functions. At first, doctors thought it was Parkinson's disease, and Cash even told a concert crowd in Flint, Michigan, that he had Parkinson's after almost collapsing on stage. But not long after, the diagnosis changed to Shy-Drager, and doctors told him he likely had only 18 months to live. Later on, the diagnosis shifted again, this time to autonomic neuropathy caused by diabetes. Whatever the label, the illness was serious. It limited his ability to tour, and in 1998, he was hospitalized with pneumonia that badly damaged his lungs. Still, Cash kept doing what he loved, making music. Before June Carter Cash passed away, she urged Johnny to keep working, and he did. In just the last 4 months of his life, he recorded an incredible 60 songs. He even surprised fans with unannounced shows at the Carter family fold in Virginia. At his final concert on July 2003, before singing Ring of Fire, Johnny read a message he had written about June. In it, he said she was still with him, giving him strength and courage from above. "I thank God for June Carter. I love her with all my heart," he said. Producer Rick Rubin later shared that June's death crushed Johnny. Cash told him, "You have to keep me working or I'll die." Johnny Cash passed away on 12th September 2003, just before dawn, at a hospital in Nashville. He was 71. His death came only 4 months after June's. Today, both are buried side by side in Hendersonville, Tennessee, still connected by the love and music that defined their lives. We hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more amazing stories.